Was it that bad, son?
It was that bad, Dad. I mean, I ran over her with a car.
I have a brand new leaked jail phone call recording of Wade Wilson confessing to his father to the 2 murders of 2 women.
Did they come talk to you last night?
They did, and apparently they had already got the body at like 1 o'clock. They just wanted to come talk to me so they, so they could fucking, so I would admit to it.
They still haven't come out and identified her.
Oh, really? They haven't?
They said that they couldn't identify her. They needed the medical examiner to do it.
You're kidding me. Holy shit. Yeah.
Was it that bad, son?
It was that bad, Dad. I mean, I ran over her with a car 100 times, I mean, it was, that's the part that made it bad right there. It wasn't bad until that happened, and then it got bad.
But,
yeah.
Listen, I know the calls are recorded and all that, but I was sitting here working and I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
And it's really bothering me, but this is what I just don't understand. Like, why to that extreme? You know what I'm saying? Like, what happened to make it to that extreme, son?
I don't know.
Well, what are you angry with, dude? What are you angry about? You know what I'm saying? What are you angry about? Especially with women. Like, what are you angry at women for?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't know either, dude. And it bothers me.
I need to figure it out. I do.
You do need to figure it out.
I know.
But, I just don't. Did you stab that first girl?
Did I stab her? No.
You choked her?
Yeah, just choked her, yeah. That's it.
Okay. So the blood you had all over you was from the second girl?
The one that killed and dismembered a child is a child? A child killed a child? When Kim is first brought into the police station after her arrest, she's led into the interrogation room. Just from the way she carried herself, her look, nobody assumed that they caught the killer. She looked more like a helpful neighbor that might be able to provide a few more statements, a few more insights to the prosecutors. Not a full-blown killer who dismembered an 8-year-old. The interrogators bring her into the room, and up close, she actually looks even younger than her age. But it's chilling. The investigator working on the case said, her eyes, she would just follow you with her eyes, observing and staring so intently. They said it was very creepy. She just looks at them and she bluntly states, I don't remember. I think I had a dream. I don't know. My head just hurt so much and it felt like someone had hit me on the head. And then when I woke up, I just had a feeling that I had done something bad. But I don't remember. I really killed her? I thought it was a dream. I don't remember. You don't remember? The police are like, you don't remember anything? Let's jog your memory then. 10:50 a.m. She goes out hunting with her new disguise on. You don't remember any of that? She doesn't remember how 8-year-old Sarang was playing with her friends on the playground but wanted to call her mom to ask her if she could stay out longer, but she doesn't have a phone. So she went to the only adult that was at the playground, and she specifically even went to a woman. She approaches a female adult. Excuse me, miss, I need to call my mother. Can I borrow your phone? The woman in this oversized blazer, aka Kim, leans down, gets eye level with Sarang and smiles. My phone battery is dead. Why don't we go back to my house and you can use my landline? The two walk up to Kim's apartment with no incident. If you watch CCTV footage of them in the elevator, Kim is neither dragging Sarang, neither forcing her to follow. She's incredibly nonchalant. They even briefly share some small talk in the elevator. We don't know what they've said, but it seems very casual. Then getting the little girl into the apartment where both of her parents are off at work, so she's completely alone with her, and then strangling her with a charging cord, like a phone charging cord, just wrapping it around her neck and strangling her. She then proceeds to take off 8-year-old Sarang's clothes, placing her into the bathtub, grabbing 6 of her mom's kitchen knives to dismember her. She starts first by severing Sarang's right hand pinky finger. Interestingly, the knives were cleaned before being put back in their original spot. She has no memory of that either, though. She also doesn't remember pouring bleach down her whole body to wipe off the blood after Sarang's dismemberment. This whole murder took place over the span of roughly 2 hours. That's how long it took for Kim to lure Sarang into her house, strangle her, dismember her, then clean up every single drop of blood in that entire house, and then get rid of her remains in just 2 hours. And she doesn't remember anything?
Located at a shrine in Japan, the Ishi no Hoden megalith was cut from its surrounding rock over 6,000 years ago and weighs over 500 tons. It sits at the center of a pond and appears to float above the surface of the water. It is known as the floating rock from the heavens. It is said to be related to one of the first gods that descended from the heavens to Japan, and he is said to have traveled over the country on a skyship made out of a giant rock. Some believe this ancient sculpture is actually one of the earliest representations of an unidentified flying object, and one of Earth's first alien encounters.
I feel like I've talked a lot about like stupid people and stupid decisions that piss me off in horror movies, but I don't talk enough about the good people and the smart people. Fair warning, there might be some spoilers in this, I guess. First thing that comes to mind when I think about the 10 best decisions made in horror movies is Chris putting the cotton in his ears from Get Out. My fucking shit. The first time I ever saw this, I was so astounded and just like my jaw dropped to the floor at how much of a good decision that was and how smart that was. Not to mention, obviously, this is a Jordan Peele movie. He's all about the symbolism and like the meaning of this and like the symbolism of it being cotton and obviously it being a movie on racism and it ends up saving his fucking life. As a whole, love this movie. Love Chris. Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs, switching places with the cop that he killed. Literally using his face to get put in an ambulance and taken out of the fucking establishment. That's another one. Like the first time you see it, it's so shocking and so mind-boggling. Pretty much every decision that Aaron made in You're Next, like there's really not one I can pinpoint, just the night and the events of this movie as a whole. And I really do believe that Aaron is like the smartest person in horror cinema and like the smartest final girl there is. Speaking of final girls, though, I obviously got to give props to Sidney Prescott, my favorite final girl. Like Aaron, Sidney makes a lot of good decisions, but my personal favorite is in Scream 2 when she uses Derek's necklace to distract Mickey, and also when she goes back and double taps that bitch Debbie Salt. Another one of my favorites is Peter Strahm in Saw 5. He is literally put in an inescapable trap and left to die, but manages to live because he gives himself a makeshift tracheotomy. Like, who the fuck would even think of doing that? Behind the Cotton and Get Out, this actually might be my favorite one on this list. But I also need to add Hoffman from Saw 6 being able to get out of the reverse bear trap that he's not supposed to be able to get out of. Like using the device to break your wrists to get out of your restraints and then just like happening to see this and in the nick of time put it in the window. Incredible. So fucking smart, and it just like makes you not be able to not root for Hoffman. Kate Siegel's character Maddie in Hush. I love this movie overall, but I especially love how she uses her disability and like her being deaf to get a leg up on the killer, and ultimately it's what saves her life. Like really everything that she does in the movie, but specifically that part with the alarm. Elizabeth Moss's character in the 2020 The Invisible Man and what she does at the end. She plans this so fucking perfectly, like down to exactly where she knows the camera angles are. Like this is one where the movie ends and you give this woman a standing ovation because she fucking deserves it. I rewatched Hard Candy recently, and like this is another one where I say all the decisions that Haley made in it. Like no matter what he did, she was always 10 steps ahead. She was so smart in this movie. And not to mention the ending where he's like, if you spare me, I'll give you the name of the other guy. And she looks at him and is like, I already know Aaron's name and he's already dead. What? Mind-blowing. Finally, another final girl. I really hate, unfortunately, the way that the Halloween, like, recent trilogy ended. But I still love Halloween 2018, and my favorite moment in this movie is when Karen pretends to be, like, scared and helpless in the basement. And by doing that, she lures Michael in, and then Laurie is in the darkness behind him, which, like, reverses the roles from the original 78 Halloween. Oh my fucking god. Chef's kiss.
Bailey is working at a Playhouse theater when this was captured.
Been hearing a noise. It's a really beautiful theater, as you can see, if you can see it at all. But I keep hearing a noise in here, and there's not supposed to be anybody here, so just double checking, but I wanted to film it just in case. There's the ghost light. It's a light we keep on for ghosts, for people who still remain here and whatnot. And what the what is that? Hold on, let me get a better look. Oh, shit.
These are the 10 scariest horror movies of all time, according to science. Now before we get into that, if you love all things horror, all things spooky just as much as I do, be sure to hit that follow button. Now this study was done using heart monitors to track the heart rates of participants while they were watching scary movies. Coming in at number 10 with an average heart rate of 79 BPM and a peak of 106 BPM is Talk to Me. Coming in at number 9 with an average heart rate of 81 BPM and a peak of 107 BPM is the found footage horror movie Hell House LLC. Coming in at number 8 with an average heart rate rate of 82 BPM and a peak of 96 BPM is The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Coming in at number 7 with an average heart rate of 83 BPM and a peak of 114 BPM is Smile. Coming in at number 6 with an average heart rate of 82 BPM and a peak of 104 BPM is Hereditary. Coming in at number 5 with an average heart rate of 84 BPM and a peak of 132 BPM is The Conjuring. Coming in at number 4 with the average heart rate BPM of 85 and a peak of 133 is Insidious. That's 2 James Wan movies, that's crazy. Coming in at number 3 with an average heart rate BPM of 84 and a peak of 113 BPM is Skinamarink. This is a surprise to me, I don't see it. Coming in second place is Host, and this movie was at the top spot in 2022, but it fell off in 2023. And that's because the scariest horror movie of all time is Sinister, and it also won this award back in 2020.
If you ever want to take down the world's internet, this is where to strike. Almost 99% of all internet traffic, including this video, runs on this hidden network of undersea cables. But how do they even put them in place, and how do they fix them? Isn't the ocean like a million miles deep and we haven't even fully explored the bottom yet? Do they just let them dangle through the water, float them on the surface, or... So the entire world is connected by these long-ass cables in the ocean, with 493 active cables coming up to a total of 1.5 million kilometers long. That's enough to go from Earth to the moon and back. Twice. But wait, isn't pretty much everything wireless at this point? I honestly thought that like satellites would be our main source of connectivity today, but no. Even the phone in your hand connects to data not by satellite, but through cell receiving towers, which are connected by cables. And these cables are installed by ship, which yes, lays them directly on the sea floor by just kind of spooling them out from the back and moving very, very slowly. But sometimes there will be underwater trenches, and having them hang across like this would be prone to breaking. So they just kind of keep unrolling the cable until it reaches as close to the bottom of the trench as it can. Now these cables, they pretty thick, reinforced with multiple layers of protection, as sharks have been found chewing on them, and can sometimes be quite hefty on the inside, as you could imagine, with fiber optic cables nestled safely deep inside of them where the data transfer actually happens. So whenever you message someone across the world, your message is literally traveling through these cables at about the speed of light, since fiber optic uses light pulses that are converted to binary code, which traverses through the deepest depths of our oceans in a couple seconds before getting to the recipient. Accidental breaks in the cables do happen every so often, and they either send an underwater drone like this to repair it, or they just pull that part of the cable out of the water and fix it on a ship before setting it back down. They obviously have a lot of backup cables and alternate paths in place, so even if some evil villain were to cut one of these cables to destroy society, it would just cause internet slowdowns in the area, similar to a traffic jam when a road is closed, and would probably be fixed in a couple days anyway. For now, wired internet connectivity remains king, as it's cheaper and faster than satellite internet like Elon's Starlink, but who knows where the future will take us.
You hear about Scotty Smalls from Babe Ruth? Did I say Babe Ruth?
You said Babe Ruth.
Oh, I meant the Sandlot.
Oh, yeah. You're killing me, Smalls.
Thanks, though.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Yeah.
I don't know who Smalls is, though.
He was the kid that had to join the team.
Yeah,
the main kid? Oh,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Did you not see the video of him recently?
No.
Apparently, he was intoxicated somehow.
Smalls.
And went to his neighbor's house shirtless and was holding a big knife. He thought his wife was in the house. He's like banging on the door, like holding this knife, just like
he was tripping,
doing something.
Yeah.
He was walking out of the driveway and picked up a dumbbell, threw it in his neighbor's Jeep window, smashed it in.
No.
Smalls, no.
Smalls.
That wasn't so Smalls. That's the judge.
You have the right to a lawyer.
Dude, that's crazy. I hate seeing like former people that we just like absolutely loved as kids that are just like it really is sad like how people just kind of just like drift away from entertainment biz. Like you always think like celebrities are celebrities. Like when you're a kid, like these people like Marv from Home Alone.
Mom, when are you guys coming home?
In about a few hours. Why?
I seen that boy again.
Now, Mark, I thought I told you that there is nothing wrong with the house. You're just seeing things because of those horror movies you watch.
I'm scared, Mom. Please come home now.
Mark, I'm out with your father, and we won't be home until a few hours. Why don't you watch some TV or something? Mark?
Her neighbors heard screaming and banging coming from her apartment, but they didn't call the police. Stacy Beth Colbert was born on February 3rd, 1975 in Charleston, Illinois. She grew up with her parents, Larry and Ronna, and with her older sister, Danielle, whom she was very close to. Stacy's described by her friends and family as the type of person who would do anything for anyone. Truly, if you needed something and you called Stacy and was like, hey, I need you right now, she would drop everything and she would go help you. Stacy was also a very active person, so she went to the gym often, she played tennis, did cheerleading, dance. She was also a really good student, so she was just a really well-rounded person. She majored in marketing at Ohio State University. She was a part of a sorority, so she made a lot of sorority sisters. And after college, she actually landed an internship with McDonald's during the Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. From there, Stacy continued on with her career. She got a really nice job, and she also got her own apartment, which her sister Danielle and a male acquaintance helped her move into. So everything seemed to be going well in Stacy's life. You know, she had a really good job, she had her own place, she had a cat, she had a lot of friends. Everything was just almost perfect. However, that would all change in March of 1998. On Friday, March 20th, Stacy had a pretty normal day. She went to work, and then afterwards she went out to a cafe with some of her coworkers. At the end of the night, one of her male acquaintances drove her home. The next day, on Saturday, March 21st, Stacy had another normal day. She ordered some breadsticks, which were delivered by the pizza delivery boy at around 5:58 p.m. She paid for her food, closed the door, and that was it. Next morning, on Sunday, March 22nd, her neighbors were woken up at about 4 o'clock in the morning because they heard loud screams, loud banging coming from Stacy's apartment. The neighbors said her screams and the banging were so loud that they actually couldn't go back to sleep for a while. Later that day, at around 2 p.m., her neighbors decided to just go downstairs and check on Stacy since they did hear all those screams and banging coming earlier that morning. So they approached her front door. They saw that her apartment door was slightly open, and they also saw her cat roaming around outside. Called out for Stacy, but received no response. Even then, the neighbors decided to still not call the police. It wasn't until Tuesday, March 24th, when Danielle realized that her sister was missing. This is when she got a call from Stacy's work letting her know that her sister hadn't shown up since Friday. Danielle immediately headed over to her sister's apartment, and she also saw that Stacy's front door was slightly open. She walked inside, she saw that the fridge door was open, her cabinets were open, there was a box of pizza on the counter, and a carton of milk. She also saw that Stacy's car was parked outside, her car keys were there, her purse, her ID, her money, everything was there. She also saw that in her sister's room there was kind of like clothes thrown around, so Danielle just knew that something was wrong, so she called the police and reported her sister as missing. Police went to go speak with the pizza delivery boy because he was basically the last person who could have seen Stacy, and he said that when he delivered the pizza, he felt that Stacy wasn't alone. Okay, go to part 2.
See. And where are they at? Australian? I don't see anything, Mom. I don't see anything. You see him? I don't see anything. Are they making you happy? Yes. Yeah? Well, that's good. How many? Four?
So last night I watched Truth or Dare. Wait, not that one. Nope, not that one. Or that one. There we go, but I guess they changed the title to Truth or Die. And now that we're all on the same page, Truth or Die can be seen on Tubi or Amazon Prime. So in short, Truth or Die is about a group of friends that have a party when they were in college, and at this party we meet a guy named Felix. He has a crush on this girl, Gemma. But Gemma is the girlfriend of another guy named Chris. Chris is a dick. But Gemma's friend Eleanor knows that Felix has a crush on Gemma and puts him in a very awkward situation. The party's playing Spin the Bottle, but when the bottle lands on you, you have to answer Truth or Dare. Felix chooses Truth. He asks Felix, yo, if you had a golden ticket, who would you take upstairs for a no-strings-attached one-night stand? Basically, Felix answers honestly. Chris hates that answer, and we fast forward a few years later. And that's where the bulk of Truth or Die plays out, is the years later. Now, is this a terrible movie? No. Is this a fantastic movie? No. But for me personally, there was enough here to keep me engaged. I was interested to see where the story goes, and there are bits and pieces that kind of felt like Would You Rather. Which, by the way, if you have not seen Would You Rather, change that. It's a banger. So yeah, if you feel like you've seen everything and you're just looking for something to watch, I would give Truth or Die a chance. It's pretty decent.
Did Scott Peterson kill his pregnant wife, Laci Peterson? This is a very well-known case. It's very controversial as well. There's a lot of people that think Scott Peterson is innocent or Scott Peterson is guilty. It's been getting a lot of attention again because Netflix just put out a new docuseries. Peacock has a documentary coming out tomorrow, I'm pretty sure. You guys have been asking me nonstop for my thoughts lately, so we are jumping right in. Scott and Laci Peterson were really like that couple. I know you know the type. They're the perfect couple. Scott was a handsome, all-American golden boy. Laci was an absolutely gorgeous cheerleader in high school with like the most beautiful smile ever. Like immediately after meeting Scott, Laci told her mom that she met the man that she was going to marry. The entire thing seemed like a fairy tale. After Laci and Scott got married, they tried to have a baby for like 3 years with no luck. They were considering fertility treatments or adoption, but in 2002, they finally conceived. And by December, Laci Peterson was 8 months pregnant with their son Connor when she mysteriously disappeared on Christmas Eve. Scott's story was early that morning on Christmas Eve, him and his wife Laci sat down to watch a little bit of her favorite TV show, Martha Stewart. Laci had plans to go shopping that day, to do some cleaning, to bake cookies, and take their dog for a walk. And Scott says early that morning he left to go golfing alone. And I know we're all thinking it, leaving your very pregnant wife on Christmas Eve to go golfing alone is a little strange, but let's keep going. So Scott told his wife that he was going golfing that day, but after he left, he decided it was a little too cold to go golfing, so he decided to take his brand new boat out fishing, again, alone. A few of their neighbors claim that they saw Laci walking their dog that morning. That fits with Scott's story. But then around 10 a.m., a neighbor just sees their dog walking around alone, but he still has his leash on. I guess she did not think that was weird at all because she just put the dog back in Laci and Scott's backyard. When Scott got home from fishing, he found the dog in the backyard with its leash still on. Laci's car was at the house. All of her belongings were at the house, but Laci was not at the house. So Scott called Laci's mom to see if Laci was there. When she wasn't there, Scott told Laci's mom that, his wife and her daughter are missing, so Laci Peterson was reported missing. There were no signs that a crime had been committed in their home. There was no evidence. There's no signs of a struggle. But Scott was really rubbing people the wrong way. He was acting really, really weird. He seemed to have no emotion or care at all about his very pregnant wife. But Laci's family were still in support of Scott at this time, but the media and public were not. Laci's disappearance was making headlines nationally. Everyone knew about this case. Everyone wanted to get Scott in front of the cameras, but Scott did not want to be in front of any cameras because he was hiding a very big secret. Scott had been cheating on Laci. Scott was having an affair with a woman named Amber Frey, and that woman, Amber Frey, had no idea her boyfriend had a wife until her boyfriend's wife was reported missing. Put yourself into Amber's shoes for 1 second, okay? You're watching TV and you see on the TV that a pregnant woman has gone missing and her husband is being considered as a suspect, and that man is your boyfriend. I mean, it's absolutely insane, but Amber did the right thing. She immediately calls the police, and Amber had a lot to say. Turns out 5 weeks before Laci disappeared, Scott told Amber that he had been previously married, but he had recently lost his wife, and this would be his first holiday without his wife. I mean, this man is either extremely guilty or a psychic, right? The exact same day that Scott told Amber that his wife was dead, Scott bought that brand new boat, like he had been maybe planning something. So Amber allowed the police to secretly record her and Scott's phone calls, and then she just played along with Scott like nothing was wrong. So 8 days after Laci disappeared, they held a candlelight vigil for her and her baby, Connor. And guess what Scott was doing during that candlelight vigil? In the middle of the vigil for his missing pregnant wife, Scott is calling his mistress Amber. In the middle of the vigil, talking about how excited he is for their future together. And on what would have been Connor's due date, they had another candlelight vigil for him, and Scott didn't show up. Guess where he was? He was out buying a birthday present for Amber because the same day was her birthday and he was trying to see his mistress. And when Scott's affair with Amber got leaked to the public, they were even more against Scott, and even Lacey's family turned against Scott at this point. There were no signs of Lacey or Connor for months. They did so many searches until April 13th. Tragically, the remains of a little baby boy that were Connor washed up on the shore of the San Francisco Bay, and the very next day, parts of Laci Peterson's remains washed up on shore as well. And this was the exact same area that Scott says he took out his boat fishing the day that Laci disappeared. And only 4 days later, Scott was arrested for the murder of his wife and unborn child. And guess where Scott was when he got arrested? Only 4 days later, after his wife and his son's bodies were found, Scott was at the golf course. A golf course in San Diego near the Mexico border. And when Scott was arrested, he had a bunch of camping equipment in his car. He also had $15,000 cash in his car, as well as 4 cell phones and his brother's ID. He also had grown out facial hair, which he previously did not have. He had also bleached his hair. He was looking pretty much unrecognizable, and a lot of people think that when he was arrested, he was actually planning on crossing the Mexico border and fleeing the country. And Scott Peterson was found guilty for the deaths of Laci and Connor, and he was sentenced to death row with no physical evidence that actually linked him to the crime. I mean, there was no blood in the house, there was no blood on his boat. They really only had circumstantial evidence that convicted him, which is why this case is so controversial and still debated to this day over 20 years later. And if I tried to tell you every single piece of evidence that makes Scott look guilty or everything that could suggest that maybe he's innocent, we would really be here talking all day long. What we do know is that Scott told his mistress that his wife was dead 5 weeks before she died. And that exact same day, he bought a brand new boat that he did not tell anyone he bought, which a lot of people think he used to get rid of Laci's body. And the same area that he says he was the day that she disappeared was where her and her unborn baby's body were later found. And right before Laci disappeared, Scott made 5 homemade anchors for his boat with concrete, and after Laci disappeared, 4 were missing. A lot of people think that he used those anchors to try and hold Laci's body down, and he was never expecting her to be found. There are a very, very small amount of details that could suggest that maybe Scott is innocent, but none of them outweigh the things for me that show that he is guilty. In 2020, so just a few years ago, Scott Peterson's sentence was changed from death row to life in prison without the possibility of parole, and to this day, he maintains his innocence. And in 2022, the Innocence Project of LA took on Scott's case because they believe that he is innocent and that they have evidence that could prove that he is innocent and was wrongly convicted. Innocence Project of LA want to test new evidence. They also want to get Scott Peterson a new trial. Potentially he might. I'm pretty sure the documentary that's coming out tomorrow on Peacock is a lot about this Innocence Project of LA taking on Scott's trial. So if you're interested on that, you can check that out. You can also follow me along because I'm always posting different updates on my stories, so you can follow me if you want updates. And speaking of following me, oh my god, I bet a lot of you guys already know what I'm about to say because a lot of you guys have already messaged me, but today I hit 1 million followers here on TikTok, which is absolutely insane. Thank you guys so much. I never thought this would happen. You guys are the coolest community I could ever ask for. You guys care about victims and their stories and justice just as much as I do. You guys have given me this platform where I'm able to share victim stories and get cases out there that need attention, and I never thought that this would ever happen, and you guys have really changed my life, so thank you so much. The fact that I get to talk about cases that I care a lot about and mean a lot to me, like this one. I care so much about Laci Peterson's case. She was a woman about my age. She was only a couple months older than me. She just wanted to be a mom and bring her baby Connor into this world, and the leading cause of death of pregnant women in the United States is homicide, which I don't think a lot of people know about. So the fact that I'm able to bring attention to these cases and things that matter to me is absolutely insane. You guys have really changed my life, and I want to thank you guys somehow. I was thinking about maybe doing a giveaway. I have some things I think you guys might like. So if you know what maybe I should do to say thank you, let me know in the comments. While you're there, discuss this case with me. We can debate, but please be respectful to each other. And while you're there, please let me know what case you want me to cover next. I love you guys so much. You have no idea, and I'll see you tomorrow.
The murder of 8-year-old Sarang. Sarang's mom said during the trial, "I am the mother of Sarang, the victim of the Incheon 8-year-old murder case. I went to see my daughter's body in the morgue. I didn't expect her face to be like that. My daughter couldn't close her eyes. Half of her face was dark red with blood. I wanted to see my daughter in pretty clothes to send her off, but she wasn't in a state for that. So I had to cut up one dress into different pieces because she was dismembered so that I could dress her." She continues, "They said they were going hunting? How can they say that? They're not human. Please hold the defendants accountable for their crimes and deliver a verdict befitting the price for their sins. Please impose a severe punishment. The judge announced the verdict and sentence. Kim, 16-year-old Kim, would be sentenced to 20 years in prison. That is the maximum allowed under the juvenile sentencing law. She was technically given life, but because she's 16, life can only be 20 years. Park was given life in prison, but don't smile. It's not gonna be good, okay? It's gonna get bad. Park allegedly turns to her attorneys and states in the court, why is that who did the murder gets 20 years and I get life in prison? Her attorneys immediately appealed the sentencing, which Park was deemed an accessory and like a conspirator to commit murder. But now they're trying to appeal it and say that she was an accessory after the murder. The court states they will be reducing her sentence from life in prison to 13 years. Kim is going to be released in 2037, where she will be 36. Park is going to be released in 2030, where she will be 31.
Do not watch this video if you're home alone. This is the horrifying and still unsolved case of Mr. Cruel. In 1991, 13-year-old Carmine Chan was babysitting her younger siblings in Melbourne, Australia. At around 9 p.m, she went into her kitchen to find a man masked with a large knife. The mask was incredibly distinctive, with white stitching around the eyes and the mouth. He locked her younger sisters in the cupboard before dragging Carmine out onto the street and vanishing. A year later, unfortunately, her remains were discovered. She'd been unalived and left in bushland. Unfortunately, she was not the only victim of this masked killer. He was nicknamed Mr. Cruel by newspapers and was a S offender. He's believed to have kidnapped and S-a'd around 12 children. One of his other victims, 10-year-old Sharon Wills, was actually at home with her parents when he broke in. He tied the parents up and disabled their phones. He taped Sharon's mouth and kidnapped her. Although assaulted and obviously traumatized, thankfully he released her. He also kidnapped Nicola Linus and after a 50-hour ordeal released her as well. And the most shocking thing about Mr. Cruel is that his identity is still unknown. As far as we know, he's still alive and walking around to this day. At the time of offending, he is believed to have been roughly around 35 to 40 years old with sandy coloured hair. He is believed to have been located roughly around the area of Melbourne's Tullamarine Airport. If still alive today, police believe he'll be roughly in his 60s and still living in Melbourne, Australia.
In this video, you learn about the girl with mouths all over her body.
Bro, little girl, are you okay? What? Oh my goodness! Oh nah. No, little girl, you're on your own. I'm not helping you. I'm sorry. Oh my goodness! Little girl. Oh, and look how skittish she looks. I'm so sorry for you.
Son tells Daddy there is a man inside their home when this was captured.
I'm a search and rescue officer for the U.S. Forest Service. This experience is why I'll always fear the woods. When I was a kid, we used to go camping near a large Indian reservation, and I met a lot of kids who grew up there. I got to know one kid really well. His name was Nolan. And we ended up hanging out a lot when our families were in the area. Our folks got to know each other, so we'd all get in touch and camp out around the same time. We'd camp for about 2 weeks, so we were out there for a long time. So one year Nolan and I were out there. I think we must have been like 12 or so. We wanted to go out and camp near the river because we wanted to try night fishing. I think we must have been about 1/3 of a mile from the main camp. Far enough away that we couldn't hear or see anyone else. I remember that. We were messing around most of the day. I don't really remember much about it. But we ended up building a fire at some point, and I was really impressed because he had this flint, or something that he used to start it. I'd never seen anyone do that before, so I thought it was pretty cool. I got him to teach me how to do it, and we lit some stuff on fire. Which, looking back, was really stupid because it was the middle of summer. And if I remember right, the fire warning was either at yellow or orange. But thankfully we didn't start anything major, and when it got dark we sat around and talked about whatever it is 12-year-olds talk about. I don't really remember. What I do remember is that at some point, he looked over my shoulder at the river and asked me if I could see something. The way our camp was set up, we were about 10 feet from the river, and we were at the widest point, so it was probably about 20 feet to the other bank. It gets hot up there in the summer, but the water's still cold, which is important. I look over my shoulder, and I could see something wading into the river on the other side. From where we were, it looked like a deer, but we couldn't really tell because of the fire. I got up to look closer, and I saw a pair of antlers, so I figured it was a buck. But I thought it was weird that it was wading into the water, and it was definitely heading for us, and I asked Nolan what he thought we should do. He's looking at the fire with this weird expression, and he tells me to sit down and shut up. So I do, because I'd never seen him act that way before. He's whispering at me to ignore it, and to just keep talking like we were, but I couldn't think of anything to say. He was saying something about an episode of some show, but I could hear the deer coming through the water, so I wasn't really paying any attention, and I kept trying to see over his shoulder. But every time I did, he'd sort of hit me on the arm and make me look at him. I wasn't really scared, I remember. I was just sort of confused, but then I hear the deer come out of the water, and I could kind of make out what it looked like. And I realized it wasn't a deer because whatever it was walking on two legs. I started to get up. I was super freaked out, but Nolan just yanked me back down and talked louder about this television show, and I could tell he was just as scared as I was, probably even more. He leaned in and poked the fire with a stick, and he whispered that whatever I do, I can't speak to it. I could see it come closer, and it stood right behind Nolan's back. I was about ready to pee my pants, and I think I'd probably have run it then alone. I didn't want to leave Nolan, so I kept sitting really still and sneaking glances at it. Thought it wasn't that tall, but the way it carried itself was just wrong, like its center of balance was screwed up. I can't really describe it, but it was kind of like it kept shifting too far forward. It just stood there behind Nolan for a long time. And eventually Nolan ran out of things to say, and we just kind of sat there for a second. The fire was making noise, but I thought I could hear this thing talking in a really low voice. I couldn't hear what it was saying, and I leaned forward a tiny little bit. And I actually did my pants when it leaned forward too. I couldn't see its face, but I saw its eyes. They were cloudy and milky, and if you want to know what they looked like, find that scene from Lord of the Rings where Frodo falls in that lake and all the dead people are floating toward him. That's what its eyes looked like, so all I saw were these two white eyes floating above Nolan's head, and the really vague shape of the antlers coming out of its head. I don't know what my face looked like, but at exactly the same time Nolan and I booked it out of there, and we ran non-stop until we got back to the main camp. I asked him what that thing was, but he said he didn't know. He said his grandpa had only warned him that if anything ever came up to him when when he was out in the woods. He was never, ever supposed to talk to it or listen to anything it had to say. I wanted to know if he'd heard it talking to, and he said that the only thing he'd been able to understand was help me. Follow for more creepy true stories.
Sometimes we get really great performances in horror movies, and sometimes we get flops. So here's a few of my favorite, most chilling performances in horror. Even if you don't like Hereditary, there is no denying that Toni Collette's performance as Annie in this movie was nothing less than superior. She brought so much to that character, and I loved her performance. Every single minute of her on the screen was fantastic. I don't think anybody could have played it better, honestly. Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter in 1991's The Silence of the Lambs was absolutely iconic. His character had less than a half an hour of screen time, and we got one of the most notorious serial killers in film history. And obviously, Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise in 2017's It was fantastic. He transformed into a completely different person for this role, and honestly, I think that he might have done it better than the original. There are tons more. I'm sure I'm going to make another part to this list, so let me know in the comments down below which one was your favorite. Anyway, if you're new here, my name is Michaela. I love horror movies, so make sure you're following me so you don't miss out on another movie recommendation.
Creepy, unsettling, and scary. These are 5 actually scary movies that don't get enough love in the horror talk community. I'm Chuck. I'd love to be your movie guy. Hit that like button, give me a follow, and if you don't agree with my list, make your own fucking list. The Innkeepers is about 2 employees at the Yankee Peddler Inn that want to uncover the haunted past of the inn. And when old clients start checking back in, disturbing things start happening. This is Ty West's best film. The Frighteners is criminally underrated, starring Michael J. Fox. It's about a man who loses his wife tragically in an accident, finds out he can communicate with the dead, but then a demonic threatening spirit appears and he may be the only person to save them. The Frighteners is scary as fuck to me and so slept on. Session 9 is a near haunting masterpiece about a crew of asbestos workers that go into a mental institution to abate all the asbestos in the building. When a bunch of strange things start occurring, listen, this will have you looking down the hallways of your house and leaving lights on because Session 9 is genuinely terrifying. ICU is about this couple that's having marital problems. One is a policeman, the other is a doctor, and their young son. Their young son blames the wife for all the problems, and the father, the policeman, starts investigating these cases that look very familiar about this missing boy. This is an exceptionally creepy film that does not get talked about literally at all on TikTok. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Host is one of the scariest movies ever made about these 6 friends during COVID lockdowns that hire a medium via Zoom and everything goes as wrong as it possibly can. This is short, tight, terrifying, and so fucking well done. Host is fucking incredible. That's 5 films I feel are actually scary that don't get enough love. I'm Chuck. I'd love to be your movie guy. Hit that like button and give me a follow.
Hulu has not disappointed me lately with their horror movies, so here are a few that you need to watch if you haven't seen them yet. Immaculate was released in 2024. If you have not seen this, guys, there is no reason that you should not watch it now. A young American nun makes her way to Italy to join a convent there, but as soon as she arrives, a bunch of mysterious and horrible events surround her. Sydney Sweeney's performance in this was nothing short of spectacular. Clock was released in 2023. This is actually a Hulu original, I believe, and I wasn't disappointed. A woman accepts a clinical trial to fix her biological clock because of the pressures of society. This one's really good, and it actually has one scene that has a pretty solid jump scare, so... Last for this list today is 2023's movie Cobweb. A young boy keeps hearing a mysterious knocking sound coming from his bedroom wall, but whenever he tells his parents just tell him that it's his overactive imagination. You already know there's gonna be something in this wall, right? Great movie. Anyway, if you're new here, my name is Michaela. I love horror movies, so make sure you're following me so you don't miss out on another movie recommendation.
I was not prepared for how dumb and funny this movie was going to be. If you go into this expecting a serious, gory slasher, well, you're not going to get that. But if you need something to make you laugh and brighten your day a bit, then this might help. It did for me, at least. I'm Ian Van Gogh, your horror movie hype man. If you love horror movies, then smash that follow button. And today, we're talking about Pandemonium. Ariel's first day at work spirals into chaos as a serial killer locks his sights on the after-office party. Everything about this movie is ridiculous. Most of the characters are extremely unlikable, which actually works to its benefit in this one. The story and reasoning for why this is happening is absurd. The killer wears a giant panda mask, which looks pretty cool, I can't even lie. But the best part about this whole movie is the puns. Every time Panda Man kills someone, he makes a pun about how they died. Like, it's so dumb, but hilarious at the same time. I was anxiously awaiting for the next kill just to hear a punny joke. Look, it's not a great movie, but it's very self-aware of what it is. If you want a little bit of a slasher mixed with some stupidity and humor, then check it out. You can watch it on Plex or Tubi right now. If you've seen Pandemonium, then let me know what you think of it. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
I don't know if you've seen Eminem's new album. It's called The Death of Slim Shady. And this is my...
I heard of it.
Yeah, so this is my theory on it. So in his album, on his Instagram, he leaks a teaser for the album. And it's a woman giving birth. And it was like the first Omen scene where when the woman brought out the baby, it started turning into a demon.
Oh,
It was trying to represent the Antichrist. So
wait, him? Like his kid though? It's supposed to be his kid?
His kid. Or like since he died, the reincarnation is the Antichrist, is what he's trying to say.
Damn.
It grew horns and it had like a snake like tongue.
Yeah.
And fam, it kept going. And in the track list, the last 4 songs, guess what they are?
What?
Evil, Lucifer, and Satan.
What the fuck? That's what it's called?
Yeah,
It's
the
his title?
songs, the song titles.
Want to claim a $750 Shein gift card by reviewing products online? Click the link in the bio and complete the steps.
Saw that? The orangutan? Yeah. Wait, orangutan? Yeah. That started healing itself from plants. Well, apparently, scientists were watching this whole process, right?
Yeah.
So there was an orangutan called Ruckus, had a cut on its, like, right below its eye. So there's this plant in the sanctuary that a lot of other people use as medicine. Like, they would squeeze it, they would use it for, like, fevers and stuff. So the orangutan, he's not familiar with the plant, he's never even touched it.
Oh, word.
He goes and grabs it, chews it up, spits it out, starts putting it on the cut, right?
That's crazy.
How does he know how to fucking do that, right?
Yeah.
They're smart, fam. And there's flies now. There's flies flying around the cut. So guess what he does? He gets a leaf and he covers it like a band-aid. So everyone, the scientists watching like, oh nah, they know how to heal themselves now. You know what I mean?
One of the ballsiest, notorious prison escapes of recent time is going to take approximately 48 hours to pull off. So start the clocks. With 48 hours on the clock, Dr. Nandi and her father pick up yet another corpse from the morgue. Her dad would help rent a car for her, place said corpse into the car, and that car is then driven to the gates of the massive prison. That is April 27th, 2022. That's the same day that Thabo Bester will apply to be placed in the isolation unit for his own safety. The supervisor for the segregation unit, is what they call the unit, approves Thabo Bester's application and drives in this giant car into the prison. This random car that's left at the gates. He drives it in past the prison gates. He parks the car and he opens up the trunk where there is a TV cabinet box. Then the gates opened and the unit supervisor was driving that car in. Now, the car with the TV console box is now in the facilities where it's going to sit for the next 48 hours. With 24 hours left on the clock, Thabo Bester's request is approved. He is slowly transferred to cell 35. It's a single person cell at the end of a long hallway where there are no other cells. At the same time, a CCTV technician at the prison places the contents of the TV console box into a wheelie bin, like a giant garbage can on wheels, and it's got a lid. And then very casually, he starts dragging that garbage bin into the dark room. There's nobody in there, and nobody's going to be coming in. The next day, with a few hours left to go, the CCTV tech pretends to clock out at the end of his shift. He's putting his fingers up to the scanner to clock out. Instead of leaving, he slips back into his office, cuts the power to the CCTV systems in the segregation unit, rushes to the dark room, and wheels the garbage bin to cell 35, where Thabo Bester is locked up. And a fire starts. The mattress in the cell is soaked in gasoline and lit on fire. That weekend, the CCTV cameras in that specific unit, there will just be random blocks of time, chunks, where the CCTV cameras are not operational.
So right now it seems like the leader of the unit is involved.
Yes.
There's a cleaner who's involved.
There's gonna be actually about 10 prison staff involved.
Whoa, that is crazy.
Many of them are involved. So after serving 10 years of his life plus 55-year life sentence, the Facebook R-worder and convicted murderer is free again. There is a split-second CCTV camera clip that they were not able to delete of him walking out of the cell on his two legs with no burn marks with one of the prison staff.
This movie was super up in the best way possible. If Stephen King, David Cronenberg, and John Carpenter got together and had a love child, this would be the result. I haven't enjoyed a horror movie like this for a really long time. My name's Ricky, I love horror movies, and this is The Void. So The Void was released in 2016 and was directed by Steven Kostanski and Jeremy Gillespie. This movie takes place in small-town America, and it centres around a local sheriff's deputy. Whilst on duty, he comes across a guy who stumbles out of the forest and he's very injured. And he takes this guy to a local hospital where his ex-wife worked. At this local hospital, we have an assortment of different characters, people there with medical problems, doctors, nurses. But not long after arriving at the hospital, things start to go very, very wrong. And the hospital becomes surrounded by these cloaked cult members, imprisoning every single person in the hospital inside. But they are not alone. An unknown creature, entity, is slowly starting to take over. So this is by no means a perfect movie. Some of the characters are very one-dimensional, and there's some shaky acting here and there, but it doesn't need to be a perfect movie. Movies like this don't need to be anything aside from what it is. And what this is a really fun throwback to 80s body horror. So we don't necessarily need deep, nuanced characters, especially ones that are just going to be killed off. I think this movie would have benefited if we were given enough time to fall in love with certain characters. So in that respect, the lack of having a few more well-rounded characters could be one of The Void's faults. Because when a character is killed off, it's way more impactful when we've been given the opportunity to really get to know that character and fall in love with them. So when they are unalived, it hurts more. Like I said, there is some shaky acting in this movie, but for the most part, the acting's okay. The cinematography in this movie is really, really nice. There are certain shots that absolutely blew my mind, and I really love this movie's soundtrack and its score. For me, a movie's soundtrack or its score is as important as everything else. If you have a really good movie but a really terrible score, or a score that doesn't match up with the movie itself, the movie will suffer. Regardless of how well written the movie is, how well acted the movie is, if you don't get the music right, your movie will suffer. But The Void really nails this. The music, like everything else in this movie, is very much inspired by 80s cosmic horror, body horror. And there were a lot of movies that came out around this time that were set in the 80s. We had Mandy, even Stranger Things, and, 2017's It. And I heard a film critic / filmmaker on YouTube say that the reason why so many 80s horror movies were being made is because modern filmmakers grew up during the 80s. They lived through that era, but they're now old enough to make movies themselves. And I think that's really cool. I think that we're all products of our own environment, and I think this rings true. Especially with myself as a writer, I often find myself writing about the 90s and early noughties because that's when I grew up. So in that respect, The Void is as much a nostalgia trip for certain people as it is just a really good, bloody horror movie. And this is a bloody horror movie. This movie is incredibly gory, it's incredibly graphic, and what I love the most about this movie, and what I think this movie does the best, is everything is done practically. Everything that you see on screen has been filmed in camera. And the practical effects in this movie are absolutely stunning, as well as really brutal, really graphic, and really gory. There are certain monster designs in this movie that, just look at this. And they move around, they interact with people, and it's horrifying. There are a few faults with this movie, but when I really think about it, certain faults in this movie I'm on the fence about. They could be good for the film or bad for the film, depending on what you want from a movie. For instance, I love ambiguous movies. I love movies that leave you with questions. I love movies that don't explain everything out for you. The Void in this movie, what's going on, everything that's happening to everybody in this film is never really explained. We get certain bits here and there along the way, and towards the end, they do kind of come together, but never fully. It's never really fully explained. For me, I really like that. But I know a lot of people do want answers. So that could be good, it could be bad, depending on what you're like and what you personally require from a movie. But like I said before, this movie doesn't really need to be explained. All it needs to be is what it is. An 80s inspired, gory body horror. So for me, the weakest part about this movie is the ending, unfortunately. I feel like it was just a bit lackluster. The movie gets a bit slow round the middle, but the third act is really insane. But instead of going out in this big explosion of blood and guts, it kind of just sputters out. It was this real big build up with no real crescendo, you know? It wasn't a terrible ending. I really enjoyed it. I just wanted more from that ending, you know? I wanted it to be bigger. I wanted it to go out the way it started. Scratch that. I wanted it to go out bigger than when it started. And I was waiting for it. I was expecting like a really massive display of practical effects, but it just kind of fizzled out. And I actually hated the very last shot of this movie. I feel like this movie would have been way more impactful, or the movie's ending would be way more impactful if that final shot wasn't there. But aside from that, I really enjoyed it. The Void is a horror movie lover's horror movie. And you can tell that this movie was made by people who absolutely loved horror movies from the 80s, especially body horror movies like The Thing, The Fly. It's a real horror movie lover's movie. And that's quite rare these days. There has been so many cool horror movies released in recent years. And there are so many really cool introspective horror movies being released nowadays. And I live for that shit. I fucking love it. But sometimes you just want to put a horror movie on that you know is going to be fun and is going to entertain you. And that's what The Void does. This movie was fun from start to finish. It's a movie that I will show to other people. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. Highly recommend you watch it. If you do want to watch it, you can watch it on Amazon Prime. That's where I watched it. But I'm sure it's available elsewhere. See you next time.
If you haven't seen Thinner, what the fuck are you doing? Seriously? If you're scared of dolls, do not watch Dead Silence. Flat out. The Ring is beautiful and scary at the same time. The Changeling is one of the best haunted house films ever made. Carrie is absolutely horrifying, honestly. And my favorite #1 movie of all time, The Others. Flawless film. Midsommar is divisive, you love it or hate it. I love it, and the director's cut is chef's kiss. Poltergeist is a must-see for all and any horror lover. That clown, though. I never go near St. Bernard's because of Cujo. Thanks, Stephen King. Saw holds one of the best plot twists of all time. That's the best one out of all of them. Insidious is truly creepy. Oh, and let's not forget Misery. Kathy Bates at her best. Must see. Watch in the winter. I'm sorry, guys, I had to. Here is a list of where to find these films. Make sure to bookmark and follow if you are new here and enjoy all things horror and spooky.
This is part 2 on what happened to 12-year-old Micaela Ortega. So while detectives are searching Jonathan's home, his girlfriend Maria, yes, he had a girlfriend, comes forward and tells police that she was already suspicious of Jonathan. She said that she saw the news about Micaela being with a tall, thin man, and she just knew immediately that that was her boyfriend. Also recalled a very suspicious interaction that she had with Jonathan the day Micaela disappeared. She said that that day, Jonathan came home wet and injured, that he looked very nervous, and that he was just acting suspiciously. When Maria asked him, what's going on? Why are you soaking wet and why are you acting weird? He said that he had stolen a girl's cell phone and that she was attacked by her companion. Maria could just tell that he was lying, so she asked him, did you hurt the girl? And he said no, and that if she continued to ask more questions, he would her and her children. That's why she never called the police. Everyone described Jonathan as just being a very creepy person. He was the type of person that didn't want to have a job, he didn't want to work, he relied on Maria for money, and he was always talking to girls. He did have a history of criminal activity, and he was actually currently on the run. Yeah, he was supposed to be in jail serving a 5-year sentence for robbery, but he was let out on a temporary release, and he just never went back to prison. His behavior towards young girls was also very alarming, and his 15-year-old neighbor recalls him making very inappropriate comments towards her. Detectives also dug through his Facebook account, and that's when they realized that he had multiple fake accounts that he would use to speak to underage girls. And one of those fake profiles that he had was of a teenage girl named Rochi, which, if you recall, was a teenage girl that Micaela thought she was speaking to on Facebook. Jonathan was pretending to be a teenage girl to lure Micaela away from her home. Police continued searching his home, and they did find some items belonging to Micaela, which confirmed to them that he was the one that had abducted her and possibly killed her. With this, Jonathan was arrested, and he later confessed to abducting and killing Micaela. He said that the reason that he did this is because Micaela refused to have with him. He even gave police a location of where they could find her body, so detectives went to that location, and thankfully they were able to find Micaela. Autopsy revealed that her cause of death was strangulation, and the MA stated that she had no signs of SA. In October of 2017, Jonathan was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Micaela Ortega. Now, this actually marked Argentina's first trial for grooming, resulting in murder. Now, unfortunately, it seemed as if Jonathan did not learn his lesson because he was actually continuing to speak to underage girls while in prison. He had a cell phone in prison and still made more Facebook accounts and was doing the same thing he was doing on the outside. Micaela's mother, Monica, is just like, I cannot believe that this guy is able to have a phone when that is literally his most dangerous weapon. In 2023, Jonathan announced his new identity as Joanna and requested to move to a woman's cell, hoping that this would lead to his crime being reclassified as a simple homicide instead of a femicide, which could then result in reducing his sentence. Micaela's family continues to fight against online grooming, and they continue to spread awareness on the dangers of this. There's actually a new law made called Ley Micaela in November of 2020, and to this day, Monica works hard to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
I finally watched Imaginary. Here are my thoughts and opinions. There are going to be some minor spoilers, so if you have not seen it, you might want to skip this video, but let's talk about it. When I saw this trailer, I was so excited because I like any movie that takes a childlike element and turns it sinister, and that is definitely this with the teddy bear. And the fact that it is its own thing, it's a teddy bear and not like a doll, like we've seen so many times done before. But then I saw all the horrible reviews, so I kind of put it off, and I finally watched it last night, and I will say I am surprised that I actually liked it. Before you come at me and tell me that I have shitty taste in horror movies, I think the reason I liked it so much was that I had zero expectations going into it. I thought it was going to be a complete flop. And so I feel like that really helped. I think that if I would have went in with my initial excitement for the movie, I probably would have not liked it as much. I think the reason that I liked it so much is that it reminds me of the horror movies that I watched as a kid, kind of like as a teenager, my stepping stone into the horror genre. It kind of had like a nostalgic vibe to it. It's not a scary movie. It is a little cheesy. Some of the dialogue sucks. For some reason, it reminds me of an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? I could see them doing something like this, especially when they go into the imaginary world. I would have loved to see more of that realm. I really like the character of Jessica. I feel like she did really well and really carried the movie. The little girl does get annoying at times, and there is some things that I don't like I don't like Chauncey's voice. It just kind of took me out of it. Also, when you finally do see Chauncey in full form, I feel like they could have done so much better with that look. He just looked so cheesy and just not terrifying, not something you would expect. I wish that they would have went a different route, but I still think it was a fun movie, even though it wasn't super scary or what I was expecting. I am excited for people who are getting into the horror genre, all the younger audience. I feel like this is a good stepping stone into it and just to dip their toes in, and anytime that we can get more horror fans on board is a win. I think this is a good one if you have nothing better to watch and you just kind of want to throw something on and you don't really want to think too hard about it and just have something more straightforward. This is a go-to, but if you've seen this one, let me know what you thought about it. If not, you can find this one on any streaming service that offers rentals, and let me know if you check it out.
The Most Insane Rulers in History Part 2. Ivan IV, aka Ivan the Terrible, was Tsar of Russia between 1547 and 1548. Abuse as a child gave way to mental illness as an adult, and Ivan began torturing small animals. In 1544, at only 14, he seized control of Russia by feeding the head of the government to a pack of dogs. He then began massacring his own people and even killed his oldest son himself. He would apologize publicly for his cruel actions and then immediately turn around and do something even worse. Prince Sado lived in Korea between 1735 and 1762. After being sick with measles at 17, he began acting violently, abusing his servants and attacking attacking women. He began murdering on a whim and even began stalking his own sister, which was the point that the king had enough. To prevent the prince from spreading any more terror, the king had him locked in a rice chest where he spent 8 days until he eventually died.
In this video, your dentist is a terrifying pink creature.
Ew, what is that? Lady, do not touch that thing. Don't touch that thing. I don't know what it is, but it ain't got your best interests at heart. Trust me.
I'm not one to be played with. You should probably get that out.
No! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Look at me. I'm the dentist now.
Oh!
Let's take a closer look.
Oh my goodness.
That looks like trouble. Yep, that's a cavity.
One of the biggest celebrities in Taiwan, Xiao Lo.
修罗
Yeah, we're gonna call
罗
him.
志祥小猪罗志 okay
Wait, is that his like fan chant? What's going
no
on?
like that's his name.
Oh, okay.
And he's also nicknamed Little Piglet. Little Piglet. Sholo.
We're gonna call him Lo. This man's level of fame. He is working on 4 to 5 projects at a time. He has an ongoing show. He's doing world tours, and he was also in a 9-year relationship with Grace, where they would talk until 3, 4 in the morning on the phone. Somehow, in the hours between 4 a.m. to whenever he has to show up on set for work, Lo has the time to do the nasty with other women. There is a part of Lo's life that I'm so curious by. I didn't know this. You said that he has a nickname called Little Piglet, yes?
Yes.
But he also has another nickname called Asia's Dance King.
Yes.
Okay.
He is known for that since day one.
Yeah, the way he dances. Have you tried his dance?
No.
He dominates the entire continent of Asia with his dance moves. His dance skills are superior. One of his signature dance moves he has, it's the move that makes girls faint at the sight of it because it's just uncontrollably hot. Lo will tell you it's all in the hips. If you want to do his iconic dance move, you better be ready to go fast. The way Lo does it is unlike any other. He's standing on stage. The rest of his body does not move. He's holding his arms out like he's trying to give you a bear hug, okay? And then he just starts moving his hip up and down in these massive thrusts. Like there's a machine attached to his hips and only his hips. Everything else is rock solid. It's not moving. It's not going anywhere. It looks like his thing is probably swinging the fork around. If it's not, I think he's honestly strapping it in beforehand because there's no way that's comfortable. His belt is aggressively hopping up and down while his hips rock and his eyes are locked in. Like this man needs genuine focus for him to go this fast.
If you can't stop thinking about long legs like me, then you've got to watch this movie. I rewatched Cure the other day, and it reminded me so much of Long Legs, and it's a great follow-up if you're enjoying that serial killer, supernatural detective thriller. Cure is from 1997. It is a Japanese movie, so if you don't speak Japanese, you're going to be working with subtitles, but that shouldn't bother you at all because this movie is incredible. Much like Long Legs, we're dealing with a detective who is trying to solve a string of very strange murders. However, in this movie, people keep getting killed by other people close to them. And when they interview the killers have no recollection of why they did it, what happened. They don't have any explanation for the crimes, but a lot of the crimes are very similar. So they know that there's a connection, but they have no idea how it's happening. I loved the villain in this one. It wasn't even really a reveal. You get to see a lot more of the villain than you did in Long Legs, which was nice. There's a lot more villain detective back and forth playing mind games. It's dark and gritty and gray, and it's definitely not a happy movie. Has some brutal moments. It reminded me of Long Legs. It reminded me of True Detective Season 1. It reminded me of Seven. It reminded me of those types of films that, for me, that psychological horror, dread, thriller, like that just pulls me in right away. And so if you haven't seen Cure, go check it out. It is well worth your time.
Here are 3 movies on HBO Max that you need to see if you haven't seen them yet. First, we have a classic psychological thriller from 2002 called Panic Room. A mom and daughter take refuge in their safe room in their home during a deadly home invasion. This stars Jodie Foster and a very young Kristen Stewart, and honestly, this movie is one of a kind. It is great. I also know that it is nothing new, but there are quite a few people that have not seen Panic Room, so I highly recommend checking it out. The Witch was released in 2015. This is an A24 amazing movie. In the 1600s, a farmer's family is in shambles whenever their youngest son disappears in the woods. Now, unfortunately, he was in the care of his oldest sister, so she is the only one to blame. I love this movie. I've watched it a couple of times, and I highly recommend you guys watch it with the subtitles on. The Witch is honestly a flawless movie. Last on this list today is going to be 2021's The Fallout. And this is actually a drama, but it is a very, very sad drama. 2 high school girls become friends after a tragedy at their school, and they kind of just navigate life together, while they also try to put the past behind them. Like I said, it is a drama, it is a sad drama, but it is a really good movie. Very good movie. Anyway, if you're new here, my name is Michaela. I love horror movies, so make sure you're following me so you don't miss out on another movie recommendation.